PowerPoint, and we're going to actually work with that as well as the flashcards. Finish is warming up enough to show. We'll be able to start. Here. Okay, so this is the Hiragana drill. So let's review. This one is ah. Okay, let's practice 3 times on each one. So ah. What's this one? E. Good. So E. Ooh. Yes. Ooh. Next one is good. All right. O. Okay. And let me catch the names of the guys who just walked in. Yeah. So in the front here. Sorry, Paul. Okay, Paul. And
Dylan Mobius.
Dylan. Okay, we missed you last time. So see me after class. The 3 of you who weren't here on Tuesday, see me after class together so I can explain some stuff that you missed out on. Okay? Okay, so that's O. Okay, now we're going to go to, yes, Ka. So Ka.
Key.
Yes, Ki. Key. Good. Ku. All right.
Ke.
Yes, Ke. Okay, Ke. Yes, Ko. Remember this. Yes, Sa. She. Good. She. Sue. Okay, one more time. Everyone's getting confused. Sue. Good. Good. Se. Good. So. Okay. Remember this one? Yes. Ta. All right. Yes. Chi. Yes. Sue. Right. Good. Te. Good. To. All right. Now we're going to go through them again with the flashcards real quick. I'm going to scramble them a little bit. My level 2 class helped me put them back in order a little too well. Okay, let's do these scrambled. This one is se. Right. Chi. Good. Chi. Notice which direction the curve goes. Su. Yes. Te. Oh. Good. E. So. Ta. All right. Ki. Ku. To. Good. Ko. Yes.
Sa.
Good. Sa.
She.
And
Sue.
Sue. Okay, we're going to scramble them a little bit more. Everybody ready to learn some new ones now? Because we've got more to do. To keep up with the other class, the morning group, we have to at least get through these today. So, Okay, so we made it to tilt. Okay, anybody know what comes next? Hi. And remind me of your name. Bethany?
Yeah.
Okay. Process of elimination there. Okay, anyone know what this one is?
No.
Yes, na. Okay. And I want to also make note of the fact that when you write this by hand, usually there's a disconnect here. And so you can see, remember we were talking about the importance of stroke order on Tuesday? You can see that somebody wrote like that, and then instead of lifting their pen and starting again here, they just kept their pen going. You see that? So it is the same letter. It's just a stylistic difference to lift your pen here, start again here, or keep it going. You see how my hand is going the same path either way. It's just a question of whether or not I'm lifting my pen off the page. You see that? Mm-hmm. So this is another example of why stroke order is helpful to know, because then you can easily see that this and this are the same letter. If you don't pay attention to stroke order, you might be totally confused by that if you're used to only this one, or vice versa. Right.
If you're trying to avoid taking the pen off the paper with the two individual lines being connected.
Oh,
like
you
one
mean
and
the
two
two
being
halves?
halves? 3 and 4.
If I were writing this all connected, it might look like that. Yeah. That's very cursive, very stylized. This is not a normal thing to see unless you're talking about a style of cursive calligraphy that is more art than handwriting. But, and you mentioned trying not to take your pen off the paper. I don't recommend it at this stage. Okay, at this stage, I think everybody needs to be learning the print style letters, which is what your workbook is showing you anyway. That's what I want you to be learning how to write right now, because one, we're trying to develop your handwriting. These are all very unfamiliar shapes for your hand to form unless you've actually learned hiragana before, right? Are there people in here who have learned hiragana before? Some, sort of, kind of, some people. Okay, if you had already mastered hiragana, I'd say as long as you've got legible handwriting, go ahead and write it how you want. But if you haven't mastered it yet, it's way too soon to try to mess with this stuff. Okay? I don't even like to read it like this when people do that. Okay? I've gotten letters, for example, from an old teacher of mine who wrote me a postcard with her calligraphy brush. It was very difficult for me to read because she didn't have a whole lot of gaps. She would have sometimes 2 or 3 letters run together, one after the other, before a comma. And I'm like, okay, I know that's a whole word there. It's not just one letter. Now, can I decipher it? So don't do that at this stage, okay? Print is the way to start. Okay, there'll be plenty of time to play around with calligraphy going forward. If you keep going with Japanese till you get advanced, there'll be plenty of time to play with fancy stuff. Okay, so this is na. Okay, so let's do we're going to go through kind of an overview of the 5 in the consonant set, and then we'll go back and do the repetitive. So this is na. This one would be ni, nu, ne, and no. Okay, and we're going to go back to na, and we're going to do na, 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 ni, nu, nu, nu. ne,
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 no,
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 no.
no.
Okay, going back to net, oops, wrong direction. Again, we've got a difference in handwritten style versus calligraphy. What's happening here is when this person wrote their downstroke, they hooked it. And then when they started up here, this downstroke happened to connect with the hook. These are not actually supposed to connect. Okay, so when you're writing it with a regular pen by hand, this normally just ends like this. It doesn't normally hook.
So this one starts on a downward stroke?
Yeah, it starts with the downstroke and then the zigzag into the curly Q.
There are some minor hooks on, many of the characters in
Yeah.
the workbook, and I've noticed that on like the Genki site, it exaggerated those hooks more in certain
Yeah.
areas. Do you want us to do that, or just, could we leave it as a straight line with no hook at all?
Most of the time, you don't have to put the hook, but there are certain ones where it's normal to put a little bit of a hook, but don't exaggerate it too much.
Okay.
So for example, sa, when you're writing it by hand, normally the top part does hook a little bit. Na, sometimes you'll see somebody put a hook there. I don't.
Okay.
So if you've got questions about specific individual characters, I can answer questions about specific ones, but in general, if it's showing you a hook in your workbook, try to only give it as much hook as the workbook is giving it.
Okay.
Okay? I'm just looking at where the hooks are or are not.
Well, one of them, like ya,
Okay.
was the second stroke above the fishhook looking thing.
Right.
Was more of a right angle than just a kind of a comma deal there.
Yeah, so ya, a lot of times that one.
Is it
next
supposed to
one-
touch?
This one, some people write it
Oh.
where it doesn't touch, some people write it where it
Okay.
touches or even goes through a little bit. Either one is okay.
Okay.
But this is almost more of a curve than a hook.
Okay.
Yeah. We'll be getting to that one later
Okay.
in class today too. So, okay, so na, ni, nu, ne, no. So let's go through them. Ready? Na, ni,
Nu,
nu,
ne,
ne, and
no.
okay, now let's scramble them. There we go. Now this is ni, e, yes.
E,
E,
ke,
Sa.
which one is it?
Sa.
Sa, yes.
se,
Se,
su,
chi. There's the chi. Na,
su, te, o, nu,
yeah, this is new, yeah. Notice that it's got the slanted line and then this coming through versus this straight vertical like that. See the contrast?
Yes.
Nu versus ne. One of the things that is helpful to do for practice is after you've got all your flashcards made, group them by the ones that you find confusing and too similar. Group them by the similarities and then look for the distinguishing characteristics to help you to differentiate. Oh, those do look alike, but when I see them side by side, now I can tell that this one is different in this particular way. And once you've got those differences spotted, then you can use that to learn to differentiate them. Okay, so that's new, and this is
u,
Ni.
ne, there you go.
So.
So,
ta,
ta,
Ka.
ta,
ku,
nu,
To.
to,
E.
ko,
ko, yes, ko, not e, right? Yeah, it kind of looks weird, but cool. She and
No.
no. Okay. And now these are nice and scrambled for the next round. I'm going to keep doing that because I want you guys to be able to identify them no matter what order they're in, but I also want you to remember the order. Who remembers why?
Alphabetical.
Yes, it's Japanese alphabetical order. Okay, so you need to know them in order as well. Okay, so we've got ne and no, and here we have, anyone know? Ha, yes. Okay, so this is going to be ha,
Ha.
he,
He.
who. Notice that the pronunciation on this one is a little off. It's not quite an H, but it's not an English style F either. It's somewhere in between the two. So the way you form this sound is you keep your mouth in an H kind of shape and try to say F. Okay? So think about it for a second. When you say foo, like in food, for example, in English, foo, where your mouth is, foo. You're making a rather small opening with your lips, and your teeth, your top teeth are almost catching your bottom lip, right? Foo. When you say who, your mouth is a little bit more open and your teeth are further back. They're not coming close to your lip like that, right? So try to say foo with your mouth in a who position, and you get who.
Who?
So it's a little bit more air forced out compared to an H, but not as much as an English F. Got it? Okay, so this one is fu, and it's the only F sound Japanese has. So they use it not only for Japanese words with an F sound in them, but also for foreign loan words that have an F. So if you've got a name with F in it, for example, you're going to be making best friends with this guy. Oh, and speaking of which, handwriting, again, is an interesting issue with this, because who can be written as 4 separate lines instead of 2 squiggles. Okay, so this is a very stylized version again. Again, I've got limited font choices in my computer. This was the one that was the closest on the vast majority of the characters. Okay, so who. You'll also see who written where the top and center pieces connect and only the 2 sides are separated. But you can see that this one was written like that. So they were doing the top line, the bottom line, the side, and the other side, but they just weren't lifting their pen as often. But this is way too cursive. I don't want anybody writing it this way right now. The way it's shown to you in your textbook and workbook is a lot more reasonable for this stage of the game. So if you're looking at the fu in here, that's a better way to write it for now. Be careful, though, that these 2 sidelines do not dip below this point, okay? This little guy should stick down a little bit lower than the 2 sides. Okay, so that's fu. This one is he. Good. And ho. Okay. So again, we're going to do our repetitive practice first, and then we're going to scramble them. So this is ha, he, hu, he, and ho. Okay. There we go. So this one is he, ki, good, sa, su, na, he, su, a, Ni. Good. Okay, and before we go on, I think we forgot to do the repetitive practice on these, so we'll do that now. So let me go back up to ha, 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 ha. He, 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 he. Hu, 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 hu. He, 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 he. Ho, 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 ho. Okay, any questions so far? Also, did we talk last time about the use of mnemonics? That you can try to make associations with what it looks like to you and the sound? So that's always a good idea. Okay, so moving on, we have ma. Okay, and then we have mi, mu first, and then me, and then mo. Okay, so let's do our practice. Ma, 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 ma. Hold on. Mi, 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 mi. Mu, 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 mu. Me, 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 me. Mo, 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 mo. Okay, and I want to go over a couple of quirks about writing on these also. So mo, when you're handwriting it, normally if you're printing, you're separating these two horizontal lines. So you can see that stroke order wise, 1, 2, 3. You can see how my hand just naturally follows the curve of that connection, but it's normally not actually connected. It's normally printed like that. Okay? And it is one of the oddball ones in the sense that you're writing the hook shape first and then the two cross pieces. You might expect it to be the other way around, but it's not. In this case, top before bottom took precedence over left to right. Okay. And let's see, the other one I was going to talk to you about, mu. Okay. Also, usually mu is written with a separation there, and you can see where they did the hook and they just kept on going. Right? So this one is normally written 1, 2, and then 3. Okay, but they just kept on going from the hook into the last stroke. Okay, and a lot of people, especially with this version, see a cow. And it's pronounced moo. So if you can see a cow in that, some people see, like this is the head, the body, the tail, and the horns.
I see it.
Some people see it more as this is a whole face with like, this is one ear, that's the other ear, and those are the horns up there, and the nose would be down here somewhere. Different people see it different ways. But if you can see a cow in that, it's a good way to remember mu, right? And since it's one of the more complicated hiragana to write, that's really useful, right? Okay, and mo is one of those, I make a comparison with she, right? It's she, but with two cross pieces, you know? So maybe she is named Maureen or something. I don't know. Sometimes the mnemonic that works the best for you is the one you come up with yourself, or that you brainstorm with your friends in a really silly gab session. Okay, me is another one that I've got a mnemonic for the anime fans. Anybody an anime fan in here? Anybody? Yeah? Usually that's the case. So if you're familiar with anime, have you ever seen a character teasing another character by going meh? Seen that?
Yeah.
Meh means eye. The eye you see with. And so they're pulling down their eyelid and saying meh, And the shape of it, you can see eyelashes, the outline of the eyelid, and the iris. Okay?
I have this like, it has the exact same things that you're saying.
Yep.
So it's like,
That's funny.
What did you say?
Yeah.
Oh,
So
no,
I guess
I
some of these mnemonics are pretty well known, obviously, and yes, there are apps out there to help you learn hiragana and katakana and kanji, and there are also websites out there to help you with this stuff. If you go to my Canvas page and look under General Course Resources, I've got lists of websites that students like. I've got links to various things. So check out the General Resources module in Canvas. And also don't be shy about browsing for yourself and seeing what you find, whether it's a smartphone app or whether it's something online. There are lots of resources out there to help you learn hiragana. So you don't have to do this all just by brute rote memorization. There are resources to help you out. Okay, so before we go into the whys, let's do a little bit more practice. Okay, so we have ma,
me,
mi,
mu, me,
and
mo,
and here we have he, yes.
he,
He,
ki, sa,
good.
su, mo,
Mo, good.
so, ka, ma,
Good. Me, yes.
shi,
Right,
ko, shi,
right,
mu,
right.
me,
Me, yes.
Okay.
ke,
Cat, all right.
Set.
se,
Set,
te,
Okay.
cat.
o, nu,
Nu,
ku, ta,
ta,
mu,
mu, na,
te,
te,
su, a,
Yeah.
me,
ku,
ku, to, ko, no, ha,
ta,
i, me.
me. All right. So, hopefully you're starting to feel more confident at least about some of them by now, and we're gonna be moving on next week to reading not just individual letters, but putting letters together to make words. So even if you don't know what they mean yet, we're gonna be reading words. Okay, so. Ya, okay? And guess what? You get to skip a letter because there's a gap. There is no yi sound in Japanese. It just doesn't exist in the modern language. And then we go on to you. And again, there's no ye sound in Japanese, so you get to skip one again. And here we have yo.
Yo.
Okay, so we only have 3 in the wise group. Ya, you, yo. So let's practice our pronunciation. Ya,
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 you,
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 you, yo,
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 yo.
yo.
Okay, and moving back up again, we're going to again talk about some written variations. So, ya, like this or like this is more common. That's a very cursive format again. You can see that it's showing you the stroke order by the fact that you're writing this first, and then you're writing this, and then you're coming over here and writing that, right? So you can see that very sweeping, and then 1, and then 2 for the 2 downstrokes, right? Okay, so that's ya. And then the same thing kind of is true for you. You is sometimes written without the cross on the bottom there, okay, and sometimes with less of a cross than the way it's showing there, and sometimes they go whole hog. So you've got the extremes, not even touching the center line on the bottom here, cutting through just a little bit, cutting through as much as my PowerPoint shows, or not even lifting the pen at all for the whole letter. And again, that version and this version are both considered more cursive. For now, this one and this one would be the ones that I would say for you to go for more. And I believe in this textbook, yeah, they're showing you this version to write. So this is a good sort of, still pretty, but not as crazy as that cursive version. So that's a good one to aim for you. And yo, you don't have to worry about too much. It's not really that different from one form to another. It's pretty much always like that. Okay?
You said it was like such like that.
Yeah. So that's just, yo is just yo. There aren't a lot of variations on yo. Okay? Any questions about ya, you, yo? Okay. We ready to run through this one again before we get into the last few? Whoa. Whoa. Thank you. We're getting close to the end, guys. He. He. Su. Ka. Ma. Ni. Ho. Ni. Te. O. Yo. There you go. Fu. Yeah. Na. He. A. Ku. No. Yeah. E. Good. Sa. Good. Mo. Nice. So. She. She. You. You. Anyone seen Spirited Away?
Yeah.
Recognize this from the bathhouse? Yeah, it means hot water. Ke. Set. Nu. Ta. Mu. Su. Ne. To. Ko. Yeah. Ha. Me. And ya.
One of the Y's. I knew it was a Y.
All right. So we're making progress. Okay, so now we can get into the most challenging pronunciation-wise of all of Japanese letters. This group, all 5 of them challenge English speakers because it's not an L, but it's not an R either. It's somewhere in the middle. But it's also not a D, and you want to be careful not to make it end up sounding like a D, because that could be really confusing too. Since Ds do exist in Japanese, we haven't gotten to how to make them yet. So what you do with these is try saying la, try saying ra. Feel the difference in your mouth, where your tongue goes for those two. And then try saying da. Okay? Da is kind of the midpoint between ra and la. So you don't want to go there, because then your la is going to sound like da, right? So you want to go a little forward of D, but a little back of L. So if you say la, your tongue is really up against your teeth, right? Your top teeth. Da, it's a lot further back, right? La is like at the joint of where your teeth meet your gums on the top. La, li, lu, re, lo. It's like either where they join or just a little bit further to the gums, not the teeth. That's where this set of sounds all are. Okay? So, and this one, when you write it by hand, it usually is also disconnected on the top. Kind of looks like a number 5 where the top broke off and is starting to fall. Okay, so you can see, again, stroke order is there, right? Because you're doing that, and then you're doing that, right? So it's just normally not connected when you write it by hand. And the textbook makes this top line much smaller, but you don't want it to be too small because then it looks confusing. So I tend to make my top line a bit bigger than the way the book does, and make sure this piece is a bit of a line, not just a hook. Because what you don't want is for that and that to look alike, right? Because that's oo, and that's la. You do not want them to look the same. Okay, so this is la, yeah, li, lu, le, lo. Okay? So if you're having a hard time with that sound, it's closer to an L than it is to an R. So if you can't pick, if you can't get it in that in-between sweet spot, you're safer with an L than you are with an R, even though that's spelled with an R in Romaji. Okay? So in terms of writing, li is also usually disconnected with a little bit of a hook there, and you can see where they just kept going with their hook and didn't lift the pen at all. Okay? And then lu and le and lo, not too difficult, but you want to watch out for, sorry, I'm flipping the wrong direction, there. We, okay, on lu, some people do write it where the curly Q cuts through a little bit. You don't want it to trail down below the bottom of the letter, but it can cut through a little bit, that's okay. And since the curly Q is the only thing distinguishing lu from lo, you definitely want to make sure your lu clearly has the curly Q. Okay? And re is like ne. You remember ne? It doesn't really connect there, but they were connecting it in this font. Re is the same way. It doesn't really connect there, but they were connecting it in this font. Okay? So that's re and lo. And before we get into the last few, we're going to review these. So let's do our 3 by 3. So la, 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 li, 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 lu, lu, le, lo, lo. Right. Okay, and now we're going to mix it up one more time. Let's see. We've got he, su, ka, ma, ni, yeah. Te, o, hu, ra, he, ku, i, sa, so, chi, you. Good. Se, ta, no, nu. Good. Mu. Su. Right. Ko. Right. Me.
Ne.
Le. The hard to pronounce one.
It was an E.
Le.
It was an E.
She. Right.
U,
U.
Ke.
Ke,
Ke. Lu. Yes. Ya. Ki.
Ho,
Ho.
Mi,
Ni.
Yo,
Yo. Na. Good.
No,
No.
Ke,
Ke.
Mo,
Mo. Good.
Ri,
Ri. Good. Ne.
To,
To. And ha.
Ha,
Ha, because it's got the curly Q on the bottom. Ket doesn't have that part. Okay. Just a few left. Okay. So here we have, this one is wa, and then we actually skip 3 blanks. Okay, there's no we, there's no we, and there's no wu in Japanese. Wa, i, u, e, and then wo, which, strangely enough, the W doesn't get fully pronounced on this one very often. So it usually ends up sounding like O. So what you want to be careful of is that they're not the same letter, even though they're the same sound. The good news is there aren't a lot of letters in Japanese where there's more than one letter you could write for that sound, and they have different functions even when they have the same sound, so you can learn to distinguish them. So this O is the one that's used anytime it's a regular vocabulary word. If it's part of the word, like ohayo for good morning, or osushi, or omizu, or any word that has O in it, it's this O every time. Okay? When you use this other O, this is called a particle, a grammar particle. This is particle O, and it's only used for a grammar function, which we'll start learning how to use in lesson 3. Okay? So for now, you only need to know where to put it in your chart. You don't need to know how to use it yet because it's not going to show up in any of our vocabulary words, and it's not going to show up as a grammar structure that we're going to actually function with and use until lesson 3. Okay? So we will get to it this semester, but you don't need it for anything other than filling in that space on your chart right now. Okay? So that's particle O. And it is in the wa column. So if you're doing your chart the traditional way in columns, you're going to see wa, blank, 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 O, like that. Okay? And then the final letter generally shows up next to the wa if you're doing the traditional style column, and that is n. It is the only standalone consonant in Japanese. The only one. All the other consonants are part of a consonant-vowel combination with the consonant first and the vowel second, right? This is the only one that works as a final consonant in Japanese. So you can do words like sensei, tempura, where the n is in the middle and there's a consonant sound right after it, right? Or books, the word for book is hon, ends with n. Pan is bread, ends with n. Okay, so there are no other ending consonants in the whole language. This is it. Okay, interesting, huh? So that's n. Okay, so let's do our 3 by 3 of these. So this is wa,
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 o,
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 n,
n,
n.
n.
Okay, now we've got 2 more particles that we're going to learn now just for the sake of pronunciation, because they're the only 2 letters in the whole Japanese alphabet that get pronounced 2 different ways. They get pronounced one way when they're part of a normal vocabulary word, and they get pronounced a different way when they're being used for a grammar purpose. Only 2 letters in the whole language that can be pronounced 2 different ways. Contrast that with English, and you won't feel so bad about these 2. Okay, so this is particle wa. It's spelled with a ha symbol, but when it's used as a particle, it gets pronounced as wa. And this particle is the one that we're going to work with in lesson 1. This particle wa and the particle no and the particle ka are the only particles they're introducing in lesson 1. And this is the only particle I know of that is regularly used in a couple of common vocabulary words. It's normally a grammar particle, right? But there are 2 vocabulary words in this lesson that I presume originally were the start of a much longer sentence, but they got shortened down to standard greetings that end with particle wa. You've probably heard some of them before. Konnichiwa for hello, konbanwa for good evening. Those are the only 2 that use particle wa as part of a vocabulary word as opposed to a grammar function. And it's because I think it was a grammar function originally. And just like the English word goodbye originated as a longer sentence for saying goodbye to somebody, and it got shortened, konnichiwa is probably shortened from a whole sentence that was saying something to do with nice to see you today or greetings for the day or some such. Okay, so konnichiwa and konbanwa use this particle wa. Okay, they do not get spelled with that wa. They get spelled with this particle wa. Okay, and then the only other particle that has a different pronunciation sometimes is e. This is spelled with the letter he, but it's written with the letter he, but it's pronounced e when it's being used as a particle. So particle wa and particle e are the only 2 oddballs that get pronounced 2 different ways in the whole language. Nice, right? So other than these 2, Japanese is purely phonetic. If you can read the letters, you can sound them out, and you can pronounce the word. Nice, right? So unlike English with all of our O-U-G-H's and, silent letters and all that craziness, Japanese is nice and phonetic. Okay? So let's do a little bit of a scramble on these, and I'm just looking at time because we're also going to go over to the language lab in a little while and get the orientation for language lab. Okay, so I'm going to scramble these up a little bit. We'll run through them again. Okay, so we did wa, o, n, and we will get into the diacritical marks next week. So this is particle e. Okay, so when you're typing, by the way, you'll have to type he to get this e, even if you mean it as a grammar particle, because your computer doesn't know that you're trying to write the grammar particle. So you have to still phonetically type it out, even though you're going to read it as e. He, good. Su, wa, good, particle wa. Ha, ma, yes. Yes, ha, when it's not labeled as being a particle or not in context where it's clearly going to be a particle, then it's ha. Me. Te. O. Good. Hu. Da, good. Da. He. Ku. E. Sa, good. So. She. You. Se. Ta. Oh, good. good.
Moo.
Moo.
Sue.
Sue.
Ko.
Ko. Wa, good. The normal wa. The vocabulary wa.
Me.
Me. Le. Le. Okay. She. U. Ke. Lu. Okay. Ya. He. Ho.
Mi.
Me.
Yo.
Yo. Good.
Na.
Na. Ah.
No.
No.
E.
Mo.
Ri.
Li. Ne.
Ne.
Good.
To.
To. And
Wo. O.
wo, particle o. Yeah, so again, if you want to distinguish this one from the other letter o, you can either purposely pronounce the W even though it's not normally said that way and call it wo, or you can call it particle o to distinguish it from the other o. Okay, because in normal conversation they are both pronounced as o. But there are only a few dialect regions that actually give it more of a W sound these days. Okay, so you will occasionally meet Japanese people who will call this one wo, but most of the time they say it o. Okay? Any questions about the hiragana thus far? Good? Okay, let's head for the language lab, which is building 1, room 208.